There is no question that there are problems in this country between police and community.
Yes, you are a donkey.
The latest on that police killing of a black man.
Now to new developments in the deadly spa shooting rampage.
And yesterday was a really bad day for him, and this is what he did.
And so we are in a state of emergency.
Okay, white supremacist violence is and always has been the #1 threat to our society.
But I'm also very proud that my wife is white.
The Breakfast Club, bitches.
All right, Charlamagne, please tell me, why was I your donkey of the day?
Donkey of the day for Tuesday, July 9th goes to the Supreme Court of the United States of America. Now, for the past 10 days, I have been at my home away from home, the beautiful island of Anguilla, dropping the clues bombs for the AXA. You see this beautiful tan I got, okay? I absolutely got my fill of vitamin D. Envy, don't get excited. Okay, I'm talking about the sun's ultraviolet rays.
I know what you're doing out there.
And you know, every day I woke up, worked out, and had CNN or MSNBC on while I worked out. And it was surprising to me that what was dominating the news, especially on the left-leaning networks, was how bad Joe Biden was at the debate and speculation on whether he should drop out. By the way, I'm all for that conversation, even though I believe the conversation is like 2 years too late. Because I've been asking those questions. Is the Biden-Harris ticket a winnable ticket? When I did the Daily Show last December, I said President Biden should give America the biggest Christmas gift and step aside. So I don't have a problem with any of these questions being asked, this discussion being had, because it should be. I just think y'all too late on having the conversation. And I also feel like left-leaning networks are not making the main thing the main thing. There is an A side and a B side. And the B side, to me, you know, should be President Biden. The A side should be the fact that the Supreme Court is no longer a legitimate court. Okay, a court that has a 6-3 conservative majority and 3 of those judges were appointed by Donald Trump. They have done a lot of highly controversial rulings, abolishing Roe v. Wade, legalizing bribery of public officials, and the one that everybody should be talking about, the one that should be the A side on the news, especially the left-leaning outlets, declaring the President of the United States absolutely immune from criminal prosecution for official acts. What is an official act? Who knows? But let's go to ABC News for the report, please.
Well, this is in no short sense, Whit, a big win for Donald Trump. It means delay. We already knew that a trial on these charges would be unlikely before the presidential election. Now it's all but impossible based on today's decision. And I want to just quote for you, it's from the dissent here. This is a Supreme Court that is sharply divided on this issue along ideological lines. This was a 6-3 decision. The conservatives issuing that decision that Terry just outlined. The liberals in this case dissenting very, very sharply in stark language. In fact, Justice Sonia Sotomayor said today that the court gives Donald Trump all the immunity that he asked for and more. She accuses the court of an atextual, ahistorical, and unjustifiable immunity test that, in her view, puts the president above the law. So as much as many court observers had hoped that this court would somehow try to find a decision that would unify on their bench and the country, they did not do that here, and this is a sharply divided opinion.
Now, I don't understand why this isn't the A-side story everywhere. Okay, here's the thing, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but when you say a president is immune from criminal prosecution for official acts, who determines what's official and what's not official? It seems to me that these rulings mean the Supreme Court, and only the Supreme Court, gets the final word on which crimes presidents are allowed to commit. And the justices themselves can be paid ridiculous amounts of money for their opinions if interested people and wealthy donors want to pay them for ruling the way they want them to. I'm sorry. I'm not a fan of President Biden either, and I'm glad that people are finally having a conversation that I've been having, which is Biden needs to step down. But that story to me pales in comparison to having a Supreme Court that is no longer legitimate. They are as corrupt as they can possibly be, and I don't understand why every single media platform isn't having that conversation. For everybody saying, well, President Biden is the president now, so if he has all of this kingly power granted by the Supreme Court, how come he doesn't use it? I'll tell you why. Because Democrats are cowards. And the Supreme Court knows they're cowards, so they will vote for something like this now, knowing that President Biden won't do a damn thing with it. Not to mention, if the Supreme Court are the ones who determine what's a crime and what's not a crime, do you really think they're going to let President Biden get away with anything? Of course not. 6 of these judges are absolutely loyal to MAGA. It is what it is, okay? Supreme Court judges are supposed to be impartial, but not this one. So even if President Biden did get some courage and decide to take an aggressive stance in regards to stopping some of this foolishness, the Supreme Court would probably say it's a crime, and Yes, use that power to get at Biden. And they're probably afraid of the bloodshed that would come from MAGA supporters. But let me tell you something. It's going to be bloodshed regardless. Okay, violence is inevitable, so you might as well stand for something. President Biden needed to use the power that the Supreme Court has granted him to save democracy, but he won't. A few years ago, I said that one of the ways to preserve democracy was to expand the Supreme Court. OG Jim Clyburn also said Biden has to expand the Supreme Court. He said verbatim, if he doesn't, we would end up exactly where we are now. Well, it takes courage to do those kinds of things, and Dems don't have that. But if there was ever a time to expand the Supreme Court, now is the time. President Biden said he's not a fan of court packing. Well, guess what? Not court packing is the reason Roe v. Wade is overturned. It's the reason presidential immunity has been granted, the presidents. And don't tell me it couldn't have happened because Democrats took the White House and both chambers of Congress, and still Biden didn't want to do any court rebalancing, didn't even bring it up. That clearly now is a mistake. I just don't understand how come this is not the ace story everywhere. President Biden doesn't seem to be stepping down, so that story is dead. Project 2025 is something that could happen if Trump gets back in office, so it's worth discussing. But right now, as we speak, we have a Supreme Court that is no longer legitimate, okay? Don't get on TV either and ask an answer. I hate when y'all ask answers. Is the Supreme Court no longer legitimate? That's not a question. It's a statement. The Supreme Court, as we know it, is no longer legitimate. And Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and every other high-ranking Democratic official needs to say it. And all you media outlets, the CNNs, the MSNBCs, Joyanne Reeds, D.L. Hughley, The View, Plies, okay, all of you who ride hard for the Democrats, all you vote blue no matter who, folks, that's what y'all need to be talking about, because regardless of who's in the White House, the Supreme Court is forever. Okay, and folks need to be demanding that the courts get expanded, but I truly don't know if we can come back from this. I'm not a political expert. I have no idea how any of this works. I just know right now, this is not working. Okay, constitutional rights like Roe v. Wade are gone. Presidents are no longer subject to criminal laws. There's a great article on The Nation by Elie Mystal. We need him up here, by the way. We need Elie up here. You should go read this article. It's titled, "It's Impossible to Overstate the Damage Done by the Supreme Court in This Term." And he said some great things in there, like, which I didn't even know. Do y'all understand that the Supreme Court is the only branch of government that claims the power to rule unchecked by the other branches of government? If Congress passes a law, the Supreme Court claims authority to overrule it. If the president issues an order, the court claims the authority to overrule it. And if voters attempt to elect leaders, the court claims the authority to overrule them by literally picking whose votes should be counted or recounted. This is not how a democracy works, people. Okay, the Constitution doesn't give the Supreme Court any of these powers. They just made them up. So I need media constantly talking about this, because the only answer is to expand the Supreme Court, because as Elie said in his article, it is the only normal, peaceful, constitutional solution to a court that no longer believes it can be checked by other institutions. Please give this illegitimate Supreme Court the biggest hee-haw. That's what y'all should be talking about right now, because constitutional rights are being overturned, okay? Project 2025 is a hypothetical thing that could possibly happen. This is happening right now as we speak.
All right. Well, thank you for that donkey today.
Donkey of the Day is sponsored by renowned personal injury attorney Michael the Bull Lamonsoff. Don't be a donkey when you need a fighter on your side. If you're ever injured, go to michaelthebull.com. That's michaelthebull.com. And when you mess with the bull, you get the horns.
Wake that ass up.
Early in the morning.
The Breakfast Club.